let's start with your 7-year-old self. How was your childhood? How would you describe it?
Oh, look, for the most part, I felt, safe and loved. My father left when I was little, but my mum and my nan sort of stepped into the breach and raised me and my little sister. And I don't remember ever feeling hungry or cold or, abandoned or any of those things. Not by my mum and nan anyway. And 7 was abused, sexually abused, and that memory was tucked away until I was 16. So if you've ever heard anyone talk about recovered memory, it's quite a bizarre thing to happen, because it's not, for me, it wasn't something triggered that memory. It wasn't some like Hollywood moment where I saw someone and it all came flooding back. It didn't come flooding back. It was just always there. I just hadn't looked at it. 7 morphs into this 17-year-old that's fiercely competitive and high achieving, wanting to always do the best, be the best, come first, get the top marks. That all came kind of crashing down in year 12 when I was sitting my trial HSC exams. So that led to an attempt on my life. And until I sat down to write this book, I didn't get the correlation between those things. It wasn't until I wrote my life down in a chronological order that I went, that happened there, I remembered it there, and right after that, I started thinking, I don't think I'm going to get the marks to do the things I want to do at university, so I'm going to set my sights lower. And everything just started to slide, everything fell apart. And, as it was in the day, we didn't really talk about mental health or, that kind of decline, and that kind of action or act was a very shameful thing. So it was absolutely comprehensively swept under the rug and never mentioned again. But of course, now we know better. That's a long, long time ago. Now we know better. Now we know you've got to, if there's a kid in that kind of distress, you've got to get them some help. You don't just tuck it away and hope that everything gets better, because it doesn't. As I've demonstrated, you can tuck it away, but it's always there, and it's always, the things that you don't process and the things that you don't deal with are going to stick their head up time and time again throughout your life to mess with you. And so that's been the story. I've had these ups and downs all through my life, and I've had periods of what I now can acknowledge have been some pretty serious depression and some pretty serious anxiety, but I wouldn't allow that diagnosis until only relatively very recently.
As you said, life has ups and downs, and one big up in that time was this ragtag group of boys that you fell into step with. This youth group of sorts.
Yes.
Please tell me all about them, because this is my favorite part of the book, this chapter about these boys. I love that so much.
Look, because of being the captain of Hornsby Girls, or the head prefect it was called, I was friends with a boy who was the captain of St. Leo's. So we, schools get together and do these inter-school things. And so I'd got to know him, and I'd also spotted him at our church that I went to. And so we kind of knew each other. And after high school finished, and I'd been accepted into a Bachelor of Education, I had, uni. My God, it only goes for half the year. And I just said
so
to him,
true.
I said to him, my God, I'm so bored. Like, I was so busy, and now I'm just bored. What are you doing to fill up the time? And he goes, oh God, I'm flat out. I've got this youth group that he started it during school. He's a real go-getter, this guy. And I said, God, where, when, how do I join in? And so I turned up to my first meeting of this group, and it was like I'd gone through an all-girls school, a very matriarchal family, and so to walk into this room and there's these blokes, it's rough as guts, sitting around the table. They were swearing and farting, and they were just so funny and telling rude jokes, but they were meeting to come up with all these ideas to help other people. And the stuff that they were doing was awesome. Like the Vinnies, the charity, came to us and said, there's this lady who she's been ill and she can't take care of her yard, and her landlord is is going to turf her out if she doesn't get a yard in order. So we'd all just turn up and do our yard, or we did blanket drives, or we did clothing drives, food drives. It was a real lesson to me. It was one of my first, I think, really big lessons about not judging a book by its cover, because these blokes, the Queen would not have invited them for tea. Let's put it that way. But they had hearts of absolute pure gold, and they did a lot of great work. And there was no ego in it. There was no expectation in it. There was no social media. There was no Instagrammable moments. It was just bloody good blokes doing bloody good things. And I was proud and honoured to be a part of it. And of course, one of those blokes was Mick, Mickey G, who turned out to be my husband.
I love that so much. All right, so what made you want to apply to MasterChef?
Well, I'd been watching the UK version of MasterChef. It's a very British, civilised little program, and I loved it. I really loved it. I thought it was cool. And so when a contestant call came out for Australian MasterChef, my best friend said to me, "Oh, you should try out for that. You're always banging on about it." And so I eventually did. Like, it took me a really long time to fill out the application because it was huge, right? Huge. My girlfriend Tash said to me, "If you don't fill that bloody thing in, you're not allowed to talk to me about food anymore." Oh my God, that's harsh. So I did. I took time out off work and filled out the application form, and then I kind of forgot all about it for a few months until I got the phone call.
And the audition day, it was quite a momentous day in your household. Talk me through that process.
They rang me up and said, "We'd like you to come down to Darling Harbour and audition for MasterChef." And I was at my computer and I looked up the date on my computer and I said, look, I'd love to do that, but that's going to be my oldest son's first day of high school. So can I come on a different day? And there's this like puzzle, this sort of, says, no, that's the day. That's the audition day. And I went, okay.
It's not an appointment situation.
No, and I said, okay, well, I'll have to get back to you. I need to speak to my family. And so, I chatted with Mick and he said, well, let's just leave it up to Joe. He can, it's his first day of school. And, so I said to him, look, I've been invited to audition for this cooking competition. It's on your first day of high school and, you'll probably want me there to walk you in and, make sure you know where you're going and make sure everything's. And God love him, he looked at me and he's gone, "Mum, I'm begging you, go to the audition." Okay,
Right.
message received.
Loud and clear, thank you.
But, if he'd have said to me, actually, I'm a bit nervous about it, can you come with me? I would have gone with him. It's really straightforward. So, those tiny little sliding door moments, pivotal moments, it could have been so different. It could have been so different if only he'd said, yes, come with me to my first day of high school, but could you please avoid spitting on a hanky and washing my face in front of all my friends, as we do.
That's so good. And look, from then on, it really was such a whirlwind. I don't think I realized until I read the book just how much of a whirlwind it really, really was, because you had no control for 4 or 5 months. And you said in the book, if you had known that you had to live away from home, you wouldn't have done it.
Of course not. Of course not. If somebody had come to me and said, look, it's this cooking competition, in fact, it's a TV show, it's going to be quite huge, but you have to live out of home. You have to leave your 3 little boys at the time in year 5, year 6 and year 7. You have to leave your small business. You have to leave all your friends. You have to leave your phone behind, your computer behind. We're going to take your keys and your wallet off you when you get here. I would have said, look, there's no way I can do that. There is no way I can do that. We're all needed in our household to keep things afloat. I just sort of thought, well, and I probably would have watched it along with the rest of Australia going, God, doesn't that look like fun? Doesn't that look cool? What a shame I couldn't apply to that because I've got a family I've got to look after. But I was literally down to, I think it was 37, top 37 out of 7,500 people before they said, oh, by the way, you have to live out of home. So I was shocked. And that phone call home was an interesting one. So I said to Mick, Well, here's the thing. If I get in, I have to live in this house in Sydney. I can't come home at night. He's like, oh God, that's a bit of a spanner, isn't it? And and he said, oh well. He goes, "Well, let's not die wondering. You might be home in a week, so let's give it a go and see what happens."
And you were not. You were not home in a week.
I was not home in a week.
15 years on, how much do you remember of that moment where you won? I'm sure you've seen it back like 10 billion times.
I have seen it. I have seen it back. What I remember most about that was that I'd been so wishing that my family were going to be there for the ending of that, for the challenges, and they didn't bring them in. I was so sure they were going to be brought in. Right before they read the final scores, I remember saying to Poe, and she's still a beautiful friend of mine, I remember saying to Poe, God, where are they? Where are they? I wish my boys were here. And so for me, the memory of Sarah Wilson saying, there's somebody here to see you, that was my moment. My boys coming in through that door. I hadn't seen them for so long. I only saw them 4 times in the almost 5 months I was away. So seeing them come through the door that's what I remember. All my boys just all around me. And you know what? They've always been all around me.
I don't think you could have ever imagined the journey that was to come. And from the end, you hit the ground like running. We're talking a book deal, cooking segments on the Today Show, travel, Brekkie Radio. I know that I'm covering like a few years here, but really your life just went from thing to thing to thing to thing. How did you handle kind of being thrust into that spotlight so suddenly? Because you don't have time to prepare for this at all.
No time to prepare, and not a lot of time for reflection or to think about, there's really no planning that can be done when something like that happens in your life, because you're either going with the flow and taking the opportunities. There's no way, and even now people say to me, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Oh, I've got no bloody idea. No idea at all. I used to think I would run my family business with my husband. We would grow it until we're at retirement age, and then we would sell it. And then we would go and live somewhere near the sea.
Mm-hmm.
That was my plan. That was the sum total of it. And I was happy with that plan. Then MasterChef came along and all these other things came into play. And there was a real FOMO, if I don't take all these opportunities, they're going to dry up, it's going to stop. And I didn't, if I could have had a bit of hindsight, like if I could go back and tap her on the shoulder and say, it's not going to stop. You can pace yourself a little bit. This thing's got some longevity about it. In 15 years' time, you'll still be reaping the rewards of this. You'll still be enjoying the opportunities that come your way. I might have calmed down a little bit. But as it was, I thought at any time this could all just go up in smoke. I didn't know MasterChef would still be on the air after so many years. That's extraordinary. A lot of shows have gone by the wayside by now, and with it, a bit of your relevance drifts away as well. That's how this scene works. But, I really hit the ground running, and I was afraid to stop running.
And yeah, I guess probably this answers the question. Looking back, I know you said you don't have time for reflection, but how was your mental health in those first few years? It sounds like it was precarious.
Look, I was living the dream. I don't know whose dream. It was a massive, wild. It was huge. I was living all the dreams, and I just didn't slow down enough for any kind of self-reflection or anything like that. So I think I'd been running on fumes for a long, long time, with no introspection about it at all. And actually, any time that it appeared like there were cracks starting to show, I was belligerent about it. I would not be told that I had any kind of condition that made me anything less than purely capable of doing absolutely everything that was on my plate. I would not. And that refusal to acknowledge depression and anxiety came from years and years of conditioning and it's partially generational. So I was raised by parents who were brought up by parents who were raised in the Depression, and my parents were raised during the war, and it was just you be grateful. You be grateful for what you have. You be grateful that you've got food on the table, a roof over your head, that you've got your physical health, you know. And that's absolutely valid, and I believe that we should be. But I had internalised that so deeply that, to me, any acknowledgement that I was struggling or that it was all a bit too much for me was ingratitude, or that it was an inability to put a positive spin on things, or it was pessimistic, or it was weak, or it was, you know, being a Debbie Downer or gloomy, or just unable to see the bright side. And so I was just really unwilling to have any labels applied to me that might indicate that I wasn't a grateful, happy, you know, person who could really appreciate how good I have it in life. And we hear it all the time, and we hear it even now. And I say it's generational, but my God, anyone saying anything is not 100% for them, and the pile-on of people saying, oh, first world problems, you know, how can you complain about that when this has happened in this country over here? And, you know, I am all about perspective and gratitude. However, we have to be allowed to say, I am struggling. We have to be allowed to say, that's too much for me right now. You know, we have to be allowed to say, there's something not quite right. I can't put my face into a smile without really working at it. We have to be allowed to say that. We ought to be allowed to say, without feeling ashamed, I don't seem to be able to slow my brain down unless I have wine at the end of the day. You know, I don't seem to be able to put my feet on the floor with any sense of excitement for way too many days in a row now. You know, I feel like I'm wearing wet woolen clothing and my limbs are heavy. Is that right? We have to be allowed to raise these things without being shamed for it and without feeling ashamed of ourselves for it. So, you know, we can talk about mental health till the cows come home, but until we permit ourselves to talk about it and not feel ashamed about it, the conversation is not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's one thing for us to all be standing around saying, I will hold you up. Ask me, are you okay? I'll say I'm okay. Are you okay? I will hold you up. But what we need to do is be willing to be held up. And I think that's actually harder, a lot harder.
Talk me through what was the amalgamation of that, the non-permission. It all kind of came to a head a few years ago.
Well, I had way too much on my plate, and I was trying really hard to calm things down and to make things steadier and easier for my family and for my life. You know, I was aware that I was doing too much, so I tried to calm it all down. I failed. Instead of calming everything down, I ramped everything up accidentally. And, you know, so I was running a business, my beautiful cooking school. I took on a job on the radio. I was still trying to, you know, and what a privilege, my God, what a privilege to be offered those things to do and to have that to work towards, you know. But it was too much. It was physically too much for anybody at all. You know, you can't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning 5 days a week and work right through and then work all weekend and go for, you know, 80 days without a day off. It just wasn't possible, and the cracks started to show. And when I didn't pay any attention to my brain, which was screaming at me, my brain went, okay, well, I'm just going to make your body sick then. And I think, you know, if you've ever come down with a really bad cold the day you start your holiday, that's what was happening. So you hold it all together and hold it all together and hold it all together. And then my brain just went, fine, if you won't pay attention to these symptoms, this sadness and this grief and this loss of joy and, you know, this inability to see a way out, let's just turn it physical. And so I got tinnitus that was so loud. I got dizzy. I got sores all over my head and ulcers in my mouth. I shook like a leaf. I couldn't hold a pen or hold a fork. My guts were in a turmoil. I was an absolute freaking wreck. And then, you know, because I couldn't pull it together, because I couldn't put a smile on my face unless I like physically had to do that. I had nothing left for my family at the end of the day, and I was sick. I was sick, and the depression, the voices that come with depression and the voices that come with anxiety started to be the loudest voices that I had. And they were telling me stuff that wasn't true and that was deadly. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say that I accepted help and went and got help before I went to the very edge, but I didn't. And I'm lucky to be alive. And yeah, it was only when I really reached absolute rock bottom that it was like, holy shit, nobody knew it was that bad, and I was put into hospital.
You're an inpatient for 6 weeks. How was that process? You've very generously put your diary entries into this memoir, which I just thank you so much for that, because I think it's very rare to get an insight, a real personal insight as to what kind of happens in a program like this. What are your thoughts? Kind of, it was really interesting seeing, your thought evolution from day 1 to day, 40. How was that process as you remember it?
It was surreal at first, like absolutely surreal. It's not, it's not on anyone's list of things they want to do when they grow up. It had moments of real beauty about it, and that came mainly from the other patients in there, just some insight and understanding from other people who are experiencing mental illness. I didn't understand in that first hospitalisation that I was embarking on something that would be a lifelong process. It's probably good that I didn't understand that, because that would have been too much to understand. I thought, okay, I'm here, now fix me. Okay, it's time to check out, and I'm fixed. Well, that's not how it goes. That is not how it goes. And it made me cranky for quite a long time. And even still recently, saying to myself, why am I not fixed? Why am I not fixed? Why do I feel this way? It's really frustrating. So I'm doing all the right things, all of them. You've got to, you've got to tell me, am I going downhill again? But no, it's just that it's a lifelong process. It's a lifelong process. And it's like your physical health. You can't go, okay, well, I'm going to get healthy now. So I'm going to eat well and go on the treadmill every day for 6 weeks. Good, done, sorted. I'm healthy now
for the rest of my life.
The rest of my life. Mental health's the exact same. It's a maintenance program, and sometimes you do better at it and sometimes you don't do so well at it. But there are certain things that are absolute, and there are certain things that are a little bit negotiable depending on the day and the week and how it's going. But if I have to, on a balance, just do all the things, otherwise I can feel it. I feel the decline. But at least now I have the tools to recognise that, and I know what to do to pull it back.
Julie, well, I think you've already answered this. How is your life now? I mean, you're a grandparent. That's just a whole other kind of joy, I bet. How is life?
Life it's a beautiful tapestry of all different things, and it's not always joyful, but it's mostly joyful. The main thing for me now is that I've got choices and I exercise my choices. So I obviously have to choose to do things that make me a living, but I don't have to choose to do so many of them that I'm run ragged. I choose to put things in as my first priority, including my 3-year-old granddaughter, Delilah, who is joy in a little body. She is divine. I choose to put in creativity, like art and playing music. Those are things that I gave up as seemingly selfish sort of pursuits because they're for me, But now I understand, and I profoundly understand, that if I don't look after myself, I'm not looking after anybody. When I'm in a mental hospital, I'm not cooking anybody's dinner. I'm not speaking at anybody's engagement. I'm not on anybody's radio show. I'm no good to anybody except for myself. And I have learned that I have to look after myself. It's such a cliche, and it's one of those annoying Facebook memes that keeps going on by until all of a sudden it hits home, and it's like, you know what? I can't pour from an empty cup. You don't have to put it in pink font and put butterflies all over it, because that just makes it irritating. But the truth is, if I don't nourish my spirit, myself, I literally can't do anything for anybody else, so I can't do the things that bring other people joy either. So it's a bigger picture life for me now, and I am living it. I'm living it, and I'm loving it.
I love that so much. I'd love to end on one of the last lines in your book, which I love so much. You said we'd return to the faith conversation, and I would love to. You said, "These days, my God doesn't hang out in a church. He hangs out in the sky and in the ocean and the eyes of people I love." And it made me sob when I'm going to cry again. I feel like that gives a real insight as to where your faith is now. What was that process over the past few years for you?
It was quite a painful process. I've always believed that if there's something you don't like or disagree with about where you live, that you work on improving that. You don't walk away, you work on improving it. And that includes living in Australia. You know, if you don't like something about it, either be part of the solution or be quiet about it. For a lot of time, I could see the major issues in the Catholic Church. I could also see the beauty in it. You know, I could see the beautiful people and the lives of service that are lived in that church. And so I tried to tip the scales in that direction, you know, and it just became too much. The terrible things that were done in the name of that organisation became too much, and so I walked away. And that was hard. That was hard because when you're raised in an organisation like that, it brings you comfort. The rituals are important to you. The sacraments are important to me. You know, we still celebrate weddings and all that sort of stuff, and all of that for me was rooted in the church. But I did a lot of soul searching about this. I can't put enough weight on one side of the scales to balance out the other side of those scales. So I choose to practice a faith that is based in what I believe about that young man and the messages that he brought a couple of thousand years ago, and the world around me. And it is a beautiful world, and I believe that it is a miraculous world, and I believe in intelligent design, and I believe that there's a scientific explanation for all of it, as well as an awesome and beautiful and created explanation for all of it. I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. And I would find it hard to not see miracles in the world because, you know, they're everywhere. So that's my faith life now. I'm thankful, I'm grateful, I feel awe, I am inspired by the world and by the amazing creatures that inhabit it, including us complex humans, who I actually think, for all our differences, we're all very, very much the same, and we all have the same basic needs and desires. And so that's where my faith is now. It is literally in the sunset and the ocean and the eyes of the people I love. It's in my granddaughter, who squeezes me so tight, and I know that her heart feels it the way my heart feels it, and that is a miracle.
Julie Goodwin, what a pleasure it has been. Your Time Starts Now is out wherever you get your books. You actually are also going to be on Dancing with the Stars very soon. I'm so excited. You've got a new... I don't think I've watched Dancing with the Stars for a decade. I'm going to be watching it.
Well, you'll get a good laugh out of it.
No, I'm sure you'll be amazing. Thank you so much for your generous time. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Georgia.